Well, welcome to DES 104. This is our beginning image editing, and can you believe it? We are already on week 3. I don't know about you, but this time sure has flown. I feel by the third week, I'm kind of blown away that finals will be next week, and our final projects will be due, and everyone's probably going to be scrambling to try to get everything done. But this class does need to be 8 weeks. I agree. Well, with any design class, I feel like you could spend weeks on just one tool alone. It's hard to just cover all of it. So yes, I agree. But tell me about your Thanksgiving. How did it go? Hopefully nobody had to work. You spend lots of time with family. 4 days off. Hey, you can't beat that. I'm a little jealous. 4 days off. That's awesome. Yeah, we took a few days off ourselves. Just did the family thing. Grocery shopped. You went to Denny's while everybody went Black Friday shopping. Oh, you guys are brave to brave the crowds. I did my Black Friday shopping this year online, so it was I like staying at home. Well, good. I'm glad you guys had an enjoyable time. I'm glad it was quiet and relaxing. So that's positive. That's good to know. Well, hopefully everybody is ready to jump into the new season. We've got Christmas around the corner, and our tree is already up. I guess with kids, we're very anxious to get it up, but I know some of you guys, are you guys like wait till December kind of people, or did it go up before Thanksgiving? It's my favorite time of year. I was actually surprised that we put it up after Thanksgiving. Usually we do it a few weeks before, but we actually did it on time this year. Too busy. Yep. Well, for some, yeah, and then Catherine, you said normally you have yours up early, but this year you're waiting to find out. Oh, that's smart. That's good. Yep. If you're moving, this is definitely getting all your Christmas stuff out. It's probably not the best idea, huh? Well, hopefully you find something soon, and I am glad to hear that everybody reported a good Thanksgiving. That's what it's all about, right? Just kind of taking it easy and being thankful for what we have. It's a good time. Kind of sit back. Well, we are going to dive right in, and most of our lecture today is actually going to be in Photoshop, so that's yay. That's exciting. I like when we are able to just work in the software because I'm not a big fan of slides and PowerPoints, and I'm sure you're not either because this is a design class, so we're gonna design. But let me start out by saying hello. I'll turn on my video. We'll get this started. I'll say hello to everybody, and I wish I could turn this to see if my Christmas tree is back there. We've got stockings hung, so we're all ready. So bring on the next holiday. But welcome to class, everybody. We'll go ahead and start. I'll go ahead and turn off the video, and we will jump right in. So just a little bit of housekeeping today. I wanted to make sure I've had a few emails from students about feeling lost, having some frustration with tech issues and software. So first things first, if you have any questions, please email me. With the holiday, things were a little crazy and backed up, so emails were a little delayed, so please forgive that. But generally, I think I've caught up to everyone's questions. If you have not received a reply, please email me again or let me know here in class. I'd be more than happy to answer it. Sometime it might have gotten lost, but I think I replied to everybody. Um, but I wanted to talk about what to check announcements frequently. This is where I'm posting our live lecture recording. You can also find it on the course homepage under live lectures, but most people like going to the announcements and knowing it will always be posted. So that means come Wednesday morning, this live lecture will already be recorded and up and ready to go. So you can get started on your assignment. And then tomorrow we will have our multi-session, and that's kind of an open door policy. It's more like my office hours where I'm contacting students, inviting them in, hoping that you attend. If you have questions, want to get feedback before you submit your assignment, all that, or if you just want a quiet place to come work. So there's no lecture. I usually take that time to make phone calls and send out emails and things like that. But you're welcome to ask for help, or if you want some one-on-one help with your assignment, I'm happy to do that. What I will not do is kind of rehash everything we went over in the lecture. So if you haven't had a chance to watch it and then you say, So what does this tool do again? I'll probably direct you back to the live lecture recordings and have you look at that. And there's other Linda videos on how to do that. So it's important that you stay up on the lecture recordings, okay? I know they're 2 hours, so I try to make it worth your time by going over the assignment in depth so that you know exactly what's expected. We'll go over how to set up the assignment and the specs for that. Also, please be aware that you have course media and Linda videos available. In fact, some are required, so you make sure you're staying up on that. There is a lot to this class besides just our weekly lectures. And then if you don't know something, Google it. If you're trying to figure out what the selection tool is, there's no harm or shame in Googling it. Sometimes seeking out the answer yourself kind of helps you remember it a little bit more, I think. Whenever I have to go search for something or try to figure out what something is, then I tend to remember it a little bit more. So don't be afraid of that. All right, I just want to welcome Natalie. Thank you for joining us. Appreciate you coming. And then don't forget, we have a learning coach. So if your schedule doesn't match up with mine, don't worry. I know that some of you are in different time zones, and especially you East Coasters, you guys are, this is a late hour for you, and so I get it. So if you're struggling, or if you don't even have to struggle. That's kind of a stereotype, but if you just want to ask questions or want to know more or just need some help on an assignment, if our schedules don't, coincide or coordinate, please contact our learning coach. Her information is posted in our class under the announcements. Her contact information's there, and you can also just go to the Student Success Center, which is open all week. I think 6 days a week, even on Saturdays, deadline day. So if you work and then Saturdays are kind of your only day off to get things done, I don't recommend procrastinating, but that is a day that you can go in and get help at the Student Success Center. So, all right. And then Catherine, you said you Googled the daily checkpoint because the video wasn't working on your end. So, hey, sometimes you have to do what you got to do. So at least you found the answer and you remember it. Hopefully you did remember it because you don't remember which one it was. But I bet if the question was asked again, you might remember it. All right. And then we talked about multi-sessions. Let's see, just come to, they're tomorrow, Wednesday at 6:30 Pacific time, and they're 2 hours long, so you are welcome. And then as always, email me if you run into any snags along the way. I am happy to help. I want you to succeed. We're nearing the end of this mod, and so now it's either catch-up time for some of us, or some of us kind of got to get our booties in gear and try to get the projects done and turned in if we're behind or have any late work. Now is the time to get it. Please remember that week 4, I will not be accepting any more late work, 1 and 2. So week 3's late work is the only assignments that will be accepted with the final project. But you probably want a chance to work on them beforehand, so try to get that done. All right, let's talk about notes on the grading. Some of you may have received feedback. How do you see your grade comments? Well, what you're going to do is go to your grade book, and if you click on the assignment, there's a grading rubric. I've made additional comments in that grading rubric, and then in the comment section, I may or may have made a note there to let you know where you lost points. If there's any questions about it, come see me. As always, I'm not perfect, and I probably, have been known to make mistakes. So if you see something that's not right or a little off, or you're just not sure, let me know and we'll talk about it. Come to the multi-session and we can work on it. And then that's where you'll see your grade comments. And then just remember to read the directions and the prompts and in the instructions. Some of you lost points just because you didn't submit the correct files. And so that's something that can easily be corrected, but we also don't want to have to go redo things. So please make sure you just read the instructions correctly, especially how to submit the assignment, because that's worth a lot of points. So just make sure you send the correct file type. Like, for instance, last week's assignment, you were asked to submit 2 PNG files, which were screenshots, and then 2 JPEG files. And some of you were submitting your PSD files, your Photoshop files. While it's important to have and save, you keep that on your computer, and you only send me the JPEGs and the screenshots. So it's very important that we that we send the correct files. And it's because it will probably take forever to upload on your end and take forever for me to download it on my end. So doing JPEGs and the screenshots, it's kind of a lower resolution file, and it's for quicker upload and download. So it's all for a purpose. But I'm hoping that today we can relate everything that you do in this class, or what we have been doing, to practice for your future career. So pretend that I'm your client and that I'm asking you very specific things. If you were getting paid to do this assignment, you definitely want to make sure you check everything off. You go over that list twice and make sure that everything has been actioned before you submit to the client, because the clients are what pays, who pays the bills. So you want to make sure that you keep that client happy. So pretend I'm your client. Pretend that there's a lot writing on what you submit, and make sure you kind of cross your T's and dot your I's before you send it to me. Please make revisions and resubmissions for your regrade this week. I'm only accepting resubmissions for this week. If your assignment is late, there will probably be no time for resubmissions. So make sure that you get it in time. And then just continue to practice and play with the tools. Not everyone's going to be perfect at it right away. I certainly am not, and I'm still learning. I don't know if you know anything about the pen tool, but I'm still trying to master that one. So, it just takes years of practice. So be patient and be kind to yourself. Don't get too frustrated, and don't lose hope, because practice makes perfect. All right, this was assignment 2. So just as a rehash, we went over retouching tips. Did anyone have any questions? If there are no, it was fun. I agree. I really like doing them. Photo editing is kind of my favorite thing to do, whether it's a family photo that you have or you're doing it for the assignment. It's pretty fun, and there's a lot to do, and it's kind of an eye opener to see. You look at the magazines on the rack at the stores, and you kind of see what they've done with Photoshop and how they've kind of made people look flawless, glowing skin, perfect this, perfect that. It's really cool. And then I posted in the discussion last time a controversial topic about editing in Photoshop, about the model on the Red Book cover, and just kind of seeing like how far is too far when it comes to editing in Photoshop, and then when you put it on like a magazine. So I wanted to get some discussion going on that. And so yeah, it was the Faith Hill post. So it was, and if we have time, I'll pull it up to kind of show you guys, or you can go to the discussion too, but it was kind of the before and after. And she already was gorgeous before, but it was pretty funny to see how, well, I shouldn't say funny, but it was pretty incredible to see how much editing went into making her look skinnier, taking off the bags off her eyes, making her skin look flawless and glowing, and lightened and brightened everything up, making her very cover ready. But that was a very controversial cover, I remember, so when it did come out. So check that out. Yeah, I agree. Exactly, Catherine. I'm with you on that one. Either way, she was great before, but it was pretty interesting to see all the edits that went into making her cover ready. All right, so we went into retouching demos. Now we're going to go into assignment 3. Before I do, though, let's see. I wanted to talk about, this is a week 2 review, but we talked a little bit about the recipe for successful assignments, and I know some of you are trying to get good grades in this class and really want to do more than just pass. And so I kind of wanted to share with you a recipe. Now, I don't know if any of you like to cook, but I can kind of relate, because, I cook every day, whether it's for my family or for myself. But I like the steps because it helps me remember. So I kind of included 7 steps here, and they might seem pretty simple and basic, but for those of us who are trying to stay on top of everything else, like family and life and work and school, it can get a little overwhelming. So I just put 7 steps up here. First one is just reviewing the assignments. If every Sunday you can just get on, or even Monday, just get on and look at the assignments before you come to class. That way it's fresh in your mind. You kind of get what we're doing, and then you're ready to jump in. Yes, or those who have 2 classes at once. So I get it. You guys are balancing life, family, work, and everything in between. So it can get a little overwhelming. So yeah, just kind of being familiar with the assignments and obviously watching the first lecture before you come to class. That way you already know the tools that are being introduced. You already know some of the techniques, and this is mostly just review by the time you get to my class. Note the information that you're going to need to know. So maybe already have your document set up in Photoshop if you can get that far, into the week. But then, like I said, watch the pre-recorded lecture. There's one every week. You are held responsible for that information. And here's just a little tip. Our assessment this week, I guess for better or for worse, I guess the good news is you don't have an extra project to do, but it is a quiz. So you're going to need to take that quiz, and you're going to be held responsible for the pre-recorded information. So just make sure you're staying up with that. And then make sure you hop on to the discussion. Get your initial post in before Wednesday, and then just stay active throughout the week, because that's how I'm taking attendance. You get easy points. I mean, I'm not grading too harshly on so much the content. I mean, you'll get docked points if it's not a substantial post, but I'm pretty lenient on a lot of things. So as long as you're participating actively, you'll get those points. Good question. I will look for you. I believe it is not timed. Let me see. Let's get into that. Okay, so there's no exact answers to search for. You can read the information. There is no time limit. And I think you can take unlimited attempts on this. I'll have to double check that, but I think you do. So, in fact, I'll check right now for you. Things might have changed since last mod. I know they were making updates. Yes, you can take them unlimited amount of times. There is no time limit. So you guys, that means you can get 50 points on this easy. Just make sure that you just take it and try to pay attention to the answers. Limited attempts, highest score is saved. So wherever you end last, that's good news. So I guess this is kind of a good week to play catch up if you need, because we're short one assignment. So that's good. All right, let's talk about our discussion. Oh, okay. So real quick, this is just kind of a refresher on what we're going to be going over today. We've talked about some of the selection tools last week and the week before, so we won't get heavily into them, but I will go over just like a brief review because we're going to need them when we learn how to do masking. And this week is all about masking. You're going to need masking for your assignment 3. And I'm going to show you some simple composite overview, how to, combine more than one photo. We're going to talk about the cautions of quick selection tools. We're going to talk about adding and subtracting to a selection. And then professional tips like how to work non-destructively using layers. Those of you who are not using layers in your assignments are kind of doomed, because this is something that you're going to need to know when you kind of get out in the real world or in this industry. Because even now, if I were to say, if you were to have edited your original image and done edits on there, and then if I were to come back and say, oh no, I want her, bring back the feature she has, or don't touch up her eyes, there is no way to reverse that on the original image if you've made permanent destructive edits to the original file. So what we want to do is preserve that photo, that original photo, and make non-destructive edits using layers. And we kind of touched on that last week with our assignment. We'll get into more of that this week. But getting your composition to blend, how to make it look a little bit more natural. We're going to start practicing doing that. And then using with different blending modes and adjustment layers. We practiced that during last week's assessment. Did everyone feel comfortable adding those adjustment layers and those blending modes, kind of changing the color of the scarf, or perhaps the vignette? You're kind of getting used to how to use those blending modes a little bit. And then a pro tip here, yeah, sort of, maybe just need a little bit more practice, but pro tip for you is back up your files. We say save a Photoshop file, save it, and then put it somewhere where you can find it. Then obviously review the mental quiz. What selection tool is best to use for what? That's kind of a tip and a little key to remember. So the quiz might be asking about selection tools a little bit. So you'll want to know the difference between each. And then we'll review process for quick mask tool. We're going to be talking about that. So a lot going on in this lecture. We're going to be working mostly in Photoshop. So go ahead and get your Photoshop open while I'm talking through these last two slides, and then we're going to jump right into the design. So let's talk about what non-destructive editing is. Can anyone tell me in your own words what it is? If you hear me say a non-destructive editing technique, what am I referring to? Yeah, so it could be referring to adding an extra layer, making those edits on a different layer. Absolutely. So basically, we're going to, yep, and making a working copy to use. Absolutely. Those are great answers. So that's what we're going to be going over in the discussion. I want you to kind of explore non-destructive editing a little bit. Photo retouching is a huge topic. Photo retouching and restoration, and it's a great entry-level job for any recent graphic arts graduate. So that might be something to keep in mind. But a little bit of background, though you may be new to photo retouching, you have kind of likely seen thousands of retouched photos in your life, even if you didn't know you were looking at one. Magazines on the rack at the stores, or maybe in a book, or how about an ad? So, or even stock photography has lots of retouched photos. So whether you're standing in line, looking at magazine covers at a supermarket, or gazing at billboards while driving down the highway, or even browsing Pinterest, if you guys are, pinners, for the latest makeup trends, you are undeniably looking at photos that have been retouched in order to create an image of perfection. This level of perfection is really important for not only you as the designer, who kind of wants to keep your job, but for the company that the image is advertising. So in order to make the product look appealing, or the person look appealing, the image needs to be used, it needs to look perfect. But there are ethical ramifications to too much retouching. We explored that a little bit with the Faith Hill post that I made earlier last week. But graphic designers need to communicate concerns about false advertising with clients. So it's important to be aware of. We talked a little bit about the different designers, which two designers has more effective non-destructing editing techniques, explain the advantage. There's lots of questions to reply to. So I'm looking for your main post to be at least 150 words minimum. And I need your post to your peers to be 50 words minimum. So go beyond agreeing and compliments. Expound on the topic a little bit. If your peer is talking about, let's see, say the hue and saturation blending mode, then I want you to expand on the topic a little bit. Ask questions. Where can you find it? Is there a shortcut for it? Or maybe you've done some research on that tool, so contribute additional information and cite another source, or maybe another example that backs up your peers' post. So just try to use the terminology we're learning in class and the techniques that we're learning as well. Remember to look at, but don't copy, the benchmark examples. Those are there to kind of help you get an idea of what we're looking for, because sometimes it's a little confusing, but make sure that you post that correctly. All right, any questions? We're going to talk about the assignment now. Okay, if you're at all not familiar with the tools we're about to use and the techniques for making selections, you're going to want to go back to the lecture 1 for this week, which demonstrates the tools that you're going to need to use. There's also more demos in the Media Linda playlist, so make sure you check those out as well. Look at all the images that were provided to you and consider options before you choose, because I want you to think about the tools that you're going to need to use for these. Some tools will require different tools. A tool on a white background may simply be able to be cut out just by using a quick selection tool. However, pictures with a busy background are going to require more of a manual touch. So look at, don't copy the benchmarks. Today's live session is going to be, we're going to be demoing a sample of the project, okay? And then we talked about the quiz, and then just a brief reminder to do your daily checkpoints. I know we had the holiday and things got crazy, but remember, you get extra credit opportunities if you can get up to 135 points per mod. So great resources for help will be today's example and demos, and then save the links, any of the links that we use for the future, okay? All right, so let's stop here. We're going to go into Photoshop. So give me a smiley face if you are in Photoshop and ready to dive in. I'm going to wait till I see everybody. Okay, so we're ready to go. Perfect. All right, can everyone see my Photoshop up? Now I want you to go to our assignment 3, and I want you to download one animal picture, one image that's been provided, so one of the hats, one of the props, and one background. Can you do that for me? You can easily download it on your computer and then pull it up. Give me a smiley face or a done. Thank you, Marcus. I want to make sure that we are all ready to go. It might take a few minutes. While you guys are doing that, I'll go ahead and talk a little bit about what we're going to need to do. Oh, sorry. Tablets are the worst. Hopefully you have a computer you could probably look on. All right, so let's start with this cute little squirrel here. I'm going to hide all these layers so that you can see what I'm about to do. So I'm also going to delete this layer mask, or actually, disable. Okay. And all right, so I've got a cute little squirrel here. And before we get this assignment set up, actually, let's get the document set up. So under your assignment 3, you're going to need to make a document that's 7 inches wide, 5 inches tall, and 72 dpi. So the way that we do that is we're going to go to the top of our screen at File. We're going to create a new document. So if you will follow along, and while I'm waiting for this dialog box to pop up, and your drawing tablet's not working, but my Photoshop is taking forever. Okay, so first thing we want to do is save this. So it's already named. So DES 104, assignment 3, same thing as last 2 weeks. And then your first last name. And then you're going to save it as a PSC file. Okay, resolution needs to be 72 pixels per inch. The measurement, unit of measurement, we're going to change to inches. And then we can adjust the width. So the width is 5 inches and the height is 7 inches. Or I'm sorry, I got that confused. Sorry, 7 inches is the width and the height is 5 inches. So did you see that? All right, and I'm going to keep my orientation vertical. You can choose, but since my background is already vertical, that's what I'm going to keep it at. So does everyone have this down so far? Keep the orientation. I guess they're wanting us to keep it, either one is fine with me, I don't care. But probably keep it landscape is what they're asking. Okay, so I'm going to hit create, and this is what your artboard should look like. Okay, now you can also go to File and Place. Where is it at? Place Embedded to place your selected images into the document. And you can place or resize them appropriately. So I'm going to go to Place Embedded, and I'm going to find where I saved my background, and I'm going to place my background in to this new document. And at any time, let me know if you missed a step or need me to go back. Okay, I'm going to go right where I saved it. I'm going to go to my downloads. And I'm going to pull up my background. So as you saw, I went to File, Place Embedded, and then it's now getting ready to place my image here. Does anyone else's computer go as slow as mine? I feel like it takes forever. All right, so here is my image, and as you can see, it is not as wide as the artboard behind it. So I'm going to need to adjust it. Now, how do we resize an object by constraining the proportions? Does anyone know? How do you resize something? Yeah, exactly, Catherine. You hold down Shift. You're going to hold down Shift, and you're going to expand the corner of the image, and this will constrain the proportions so that your image does not look skewed or stretched. Because it doesn't quite fit the true size, you might have to rearrange it, you know, making sure if you want more of the backlight and less of the stage, or more stage, less backlight. That is up to you. So I'm going to kind of go in the middle somewhere, and I'm going to kind of move it up and down using my move tool to position the picture right where I want it. Yes, Marcus, if you don't have the transparency grid, that's fine. You're going to be putting a background on it anyways. However, like Catherine said, when you set up your new document, if you go to File and New, there's a setting for it where you can set the transparency instead of the white background, and I'll show you as soon as it pops up. If it decides to, let's see. And it is going so slow. Let's see. Maybe I should have you drive, Marcus, because this is still thinking. See if I can close down some programs. Maybe it'll free it up. There we go. There's the new document box. Okay, so you see the white box. Let's see if my thing ever decides to, I might have to restart it. I hope not. Okay, let's try it again. Well, either way, my Photoshop is stalling, so we'll have to. Would you mind, I'm going to go ahead and stop share. Would you mind pulling up your Photoshop so I could take a look at it? I'll close out of here if you'll pull yours up. Do you know how to do that? There we go. Perfect. Okay, so if you'll pull up your Photoshop so that we can see it. All right, will you go to your new document for me? Okay, so down on the background contents, can you click on that white box? The drop-down arrow. On the document presets, could you click on, see where it says background contents? So you'll close out of that. Oops. There we go. So click on, yeah, and then can you scroll down? And okay, to the new document, then make sure it's all saved as you would want it to be saved. And then now we're going to go and we're going to talk about how to make an appropriate selection and implement the masking technique to create a new effective composite. So what we're going to do is go to the squirrel picture. In this case, you would grab your animal picture, whatever it is, whichever one you chose, and you'll choose one of each. There he is. Okay. All right, so for my squirrel picture, I need to be able to extract him from my background without using destructive techniques. If I were to use my eraser tool and erase, it would ruin the original picture, and that's not what I want. So I need to use my selection tool to be able to grab him and bring him into my new assignment. So I'm going to grab the quick selection tool. Now, when you click on the quick selection tool, a few things that you will notice are you have the brush size up here where you can adjust how big your brush size is or how small your brush size is. Also, the hardness of your brush. If you want to soften the edges or make the edges nice and hard, you can adjust your slider. Also, the spacing and the pen pressure, but I don't ever adjust this. I don't need this for this assignment. So the only thing that I will probably adjust is this size, and perhaps the hardness I will bring down just a little bit. So now that I've got my quick selection tool, all you have to do to engage it is click and drag. And you'll notice that my quick selection tool is starting to kind of cling to the edges. It kind of gravitates to the edges a little bit. And because the tail kind of blends in with that sidewalk he's on, I'm going to have to go in and kind of make some details. So I'm going to just grab what I can of the squirrel. It's going to be a rough grab, and then I can go in. Now, if for some reason it does select too much, you can just adjust that by holding down your Option button if you're on a Mac. Option and dragging will subtract that extra space that it grabbed, kind of disabling that selection. If you're on a PC, you will use Alt and click and drag. So Option, and because it grabbed too much, I'm going in and kind of deselecting this area. And then I'll let go of the Option button or the Alt button. And now I'm just simply dragging. And you'll notice that your mouse changes to a plus when you're selecting something, and it will turn to a minus when you engage the disable key with the Option button, kind of subtracting whatever it grabs. So I'm going to go in and kind of trace the entire object. So I want you to try this with the animal photo. I want you to grab the selection tool because we are going to learn how to make a mask. And I need you to select your subject. So grab that animal with your selection tool. And if you feel comfortable enough sharing your screen to kind of show me what you've done, that would be great. And that way students can see. Again, I'm just going to get as close as I can to his claws. This is actually a very tough picture to select because the background really blends in with the subject. All right, I'm going to hold down my Option key to engage the disable selection. Hold down Option. I'm going to clean up this area because I did not want to grab this portion of the sidewalk. All right, welcome Amanda. Thanks for coming. Good to have you. Okay, so I'm again my Photoshop is thinking, but I'm going to disable or deselect this area underneath his feet so that I can get just him as a cutout. That's the idea anyways. The shortcut is, are you on a Mac or a PC, Marcus? For a Mac, you're a PC now, so it's Alt plus drag. So you'll click and drag, holding down the Alt button. That will deselect it. And I'm sorry, guys, this is freezing on me. I may have to reboot my Photoshop, and I'm really hoping not. See if I can close down another program. Okay. Here we go. All right, now it's working. So again, I'm holding down the Option button. In your case, Marcus, it would be the Alt button. And I'm just going to go in here. Now, if it's grabbing too much or deselecting too much, you can go ahead and adjust the brush size. Make it a little smaller. So I might go ahead and do that. Bring it down a little bit. Zoom in if you need to get more of an accurate read on your subject. All right, so how many of you are trying this right now? All right, so I'm just going in here. I'm cleaning it up. I'm zooming out. The keyboard shortcut is Command or Command minus to zoom out, or Command or Control minus if you're on a PC. All right, so this guy looks pretty good. All right, so we'll kind of step back, make sure everything is selected. Now, I'm going to unlock this layer. And of course, I don't want to do anything to this original layer, so I'm going to copy the layer. So I'm going to go to duplicate layer, hit OK. So on my layer copy is where I'm going to add the mask. So down here at the bottom, or say, let's right click on it. We'll go to create clipping mask. Do you guys see that? You move this in so you can see that a little bit. Okay, so right click on your layer copy, and down here where it says create clipping mask, I'm going to click that. Actually, let's not do the clipping mask. Let's just do the layer mask. So add layer mask is right down here. You can also probably access it. Does it let you do it from here? No. Okay, so the layer mask down here at the bottom of your layer. Sorry, guys. There we go. So as you can see, it's already kind of taken shape. On my layer mask, you see my cutout. Just like this. So if I wanted to fine tune the layer mask, I could. So this is how you would do a quick cutout. Let's back up for a minute. Now, with the fuzzy tail, I'm going to need to go in and make some details, some alterations, so I'm not going to be able to just do a quick cutout. However, if it was a white background, like the hat on the white background, you could easily do a quick layer mask after you've selected it, and that would be fine. But for this guy, he's going to require a little bit more fine tuning. So I'm going to duplicate the layer on my layer copy. After he's selected, I'm going to go here at the top of my Photoshop where it says select and mask. Does everyone see that? And then it will open up my properties, and you'll kind of notice how the background turns red. This is showing everything that is not going to be visible. Only the mouse that was selected, or squirrel that was selected, is going to be visible. But here's the cool thing. This is where I get to go in and kind of paint in the rest of his tail. As you can see, I can kind of fine tune his tail a little bit so it's not such a hard edge. Gonna make it look a little fuzzier. Over here is where I can adjust the edge radius a little bit. This will kind of give me more of a natural look. See, as I adjust this radius, he's starting to look a little fuzzier, which is exactly what I want. I can also increase the smoothness. These are other refinements. So if I don't want such a hard edge, I can adjust the smoothness. I can also adjust the contrast. But too much contrast is going to make his tail look fake. So I want to maintain that fuzzy look, and then also shift edge will give me more of a natural look. So I'll kind of just play around with it. There we go. Adjusting the shift edge will give me that soft, fuzzy look. Just kind of only use it if it's going to help. So now that I've got my properties all set up and I can see him in the view mode, everything looks good. If I need to add in a little bit more, so say I didn't select the rest of his tail, I need to add more, I can just go in and paint where his tail would be. And then say I accidentally went too far into the picture. So for instance, I went and did this. I can zoom in, same concept as before. You hold down that option or that alt button and click and drag, and that will deselect or disable that selection. This will allow me to color over it and deselect it because I don't want that selected. So in case you go over an area or you go too far on your subject, just hold that button down and that will help you get more of an accurate read on this. All right, are there any questions so far about this step right here? So if you wanted to do a quick and dirty cutout, if it was a white background, there's no fuzzy edge, no hard, it's just a hard edge, you could probably get away with just clicking on the layer mask on your copied layer, or clicking the select and mask button at the top after you have selected your object. This will open up the properties and allow you to get more of a detailed selection. You can clean it up, kind of fine tune it a little bit. So I'll open it up to questions if you are wondering how we got here. If you're good, I will move on. All right, sounds good. Okay, so we're going to zoom out. I've got my selection. Now all I have to do is hit OK to accept the changes. And as you can see, my squirrel has been cut out. Now, but it doesn't look like it because we can still see the background, right? So I'm going to double click on this layer mask. And at the bottom here, I'm going to click on invert. This is going to flip the layer. So if I wanted to switch it, just like that, I could. It just depends on what you want to see, okay? All right, so I want you guys to practice that for just a minute. So I'm going to hide my original layer because you're not going to be able to see it. But on the layer mask, I'll open it up again. You can invert it. So now you can see how I've got this fuzzy little guy and he's all cut out. Just like this. So now he's ready to be placed in my assignment. Now, a few things. You can save it as a PNG file, or you can click and drag it right into the assignment. Kind of embed it. So obviously he's much bigger than the actual background image. So I'm going to go to Edit, Free Transform. Or I can go to Edit and then go to Transform Scale. This will allow me to scale him down. And he is much bigger, so I have to zoom out. I couldn't see the anchor points on the image, so I had to zoom out, Command minus or Control minus. And I'm going to hold down Shift when I can resize anything to constrain the proportions. And then I'm going to drag him back up here on the stage. I'll zoom in so you can see more of what we're doing. Shrink him down. Just like this. All right, and then I will save it or apply it. We'll say, do you want this to be saved? You'll say yes, apply the changes. So notice when I bring him into this new, I'll hit save. When I bring him into this, into the background, into my saved file, notice how it copied that layer mask as well. So it copied him over perfectly. So now he is placed in there. So now I just need the objects. So there's other selection tools that we might be able to use. So in this case, I'm going to drag the hat picture into Photoshop. Before I do this, does anyone want to share their screen or demonstrate what they've done so far? Yeah, I agree with you, Catherine. This is really cool. It's kind of fun making a composite of something because you get to use all of the tools we've been going over. And I'm going to put this in Photoshop. So I'm going to bring up my hat. All right, so as you can see, the objects with the white background have a nice hard edge. So you would only really need to use the selection tool, the quick selection tool, if you wanted to. I'm going to adjust the brush size so it's a little larger. You'll definitely want the hardness there. And it will kind of cling to the edges nicely. So you could use this. Notice how it just kind of selected the whole thing. That's one way, that's one tool. I'll deselect it so you can see another tool that we could use. There's the magic wand tool. So you can click inside. It will kind of start highlighting only the dark areas. Magic wand tool probably is not the one for this job though, since it's got other colors within it. There's other selection tools. There's the magnetic lasso tool, which is if you click, if you click on the edge, it automatically gravitates to the edge. This works really well on a white background and a dark object because it will detect the edges quite easily. So as it kind of magnetizes to the edges, I'm not even clicking, I'm just kind of dragging my mouse around. I only clicked once. I click it to lock the anchor point in, but I'm just dragging the mouse and then I'll click to end on the same anchor point and then I've got my selection. So that's also another handy way of using the magnetic lasso tool. Another thing that you can use is the regular lasso tool. you would kind of manually have to click and hold the mouse down as you're tracing. Not near as accurate. This is all hand drawn. So as you can see, it's not very accurate, probably not the way to go on this one. The polygon lasso tool really only comes in handy if you have straight edges, but of course this is not going to take, cut out the detail that I'm going to need. This is going to have too hard of an edge selection, so we will not be using the polygon lasso tool. So find a selection tool that works for you. I use the quick selection tool quite a bit, just because I can click and drag and it kind of hugs the edges quickly. All right. Okay, so now that the object is selected, I'm going to unlock the background so that it will allow me to make any changes. I'm going to click on Select and Mask. Doing that brings up the Properties box again. So this will allow me to make adjustments to the edge. Now with a, with something like this, with a white background and a hard edge and a dark object, it's going to be very easy to cut this out. So you may not even need to go into the properties. You could simply just do a layer mask. But this will allow you to kind of, if you need to fine tune edge detection and make any other refinements, this is where you would do it. So if we opted not to do that route, well, if you're in the select, if you click select and mask, it will automatically make another mask for you. You don't necessarily need the other layer. So watch what happens. So if I go like, let's see, let's back up. Hold on, my Photoshop is freezing on me again. Let's see if we can get it to, I'm not going to accept that. All right. Cancel. Okay, so it's selected. Now, if I were to go into select and mask, it would select it for me. Should bring up a properties box. Okay, and this is where I can adjust. I can move the object around. I can also adjust the brush size if I needed to. Everything looks good. I'll hit save. I'll accept the changes, and then it automatically makes that layer copy for me. So it kind of saves me a step. See that layer copy right there? So another way to go about this is, if it's selected, you could just click on layer mask down at the bottom and it will make a mask. You don't necessarily need that extra layer because my mask is right here. Because I can always disable my mask. So by right-clicking on the mask, it will allow me to disable it, which brings back the original image or the background. This is an excellent way of doing a non-destructive editing technique, because when you are able to right-click or control-click to disable, so you could also, shortcut for that is just holding down the option button, disabling it that way, or you can right-click and click on Disable Mask. There's my properties box. So by right-clicking or control-clicking to disable or bring the image back, you can also, this is kind of does the same thing. It's just a shortcut of doing it. But this will allow you to see the original image. Had I made changes on my original image, I would have destroyed the original and would not have been able to go back and forth. So this is an excellent way to kind of do this in a non-destructive way, I should say. So just be sure that you double click the mask to open up the properties, and then the setting for the mask. You can also work on your mask further by targeting the mask or by painting directly on it. So if I have this mask selected, I'll make sure my mask is selected, and I want some of the white background to show up. What would I do? How would I get that to show up? What do you think? If I wanted more of the background to show, yeah, you could invert it, but what if I just wanted the left side? If I invert it, the whole thing comes back. So what I could do is grab my paintbrush, If I paint with black, if my foreground is set to black right here, let me increase my brush size real quick so you can see it. I'm going to make more of a dramatic effect. If I paint with black, what happens? What's happening? It's including that white background, right? But if I paint with white, it's now going to include, I need to adjust my opacity first of all. It's now going to bring that background back. Do you see if I'm painting with white? And watch what happens to the mask. You can already tell that it's working. They're subtle, it's hard to see. So I'm painting back in that background. And that's the beauty of using layer masks, is that you do this in such a way that you can bring it back to life almost. So yes, if you wanted to bring the whole thing back, you could just invert it. But if you wanted to bring only a portion of the picture back, you would need to use the paintbrush and paint with either black or white, depending on what you wanted to bring back, the foreground or the background. All right, so let's back up a little bit, back to our cutout hat. So a couple other things that you can do with this editing technique is you can also click on the layer mask and adjust the blending modes. You can also add an adjustment layer. So in this case, if I wanted to turn this hat to, let's see, if I wanted to adjust the color balance on it, I could do that. If I wanted to adjust, let's see, what could I, it's already black, so I might need to pick something else. Let's do the hue and saturation. It brings up my properties box, and then this is where I can kind of add color. I can colorize it a little bit or take the color out. So there's my hat. I'm going to give it kind of a reddish color. You can adjust the lightness or the darkness of the hat. You could also click on colorize and it would automatically kind of find a balance for you. If you wanted to do a preset, you can kind of just do one that's already set for you. Kind of explore these different presets, because if you want to just take all the blues out or all the greens, you could do that. Sepia, if you want a kind of an old-timey. And the sepia kind of works well with the background, because if you'll notice it's kind of got this brownish background. So I'm going to use the sepia. And what I'm going to do is drag it right into my assignment. And what it will do is kind of apply that whole saturation to the whole image. But if I don't want it to apply to my squirrel or to my background, I can just bring that hue and saturation behind it. But you can also drag in adjustment layers. So that's also important to know. So if I wanted to apply that sepia to the entire picture, I could just drag it in. But that's not what I want to do. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that layer. So as you can see, there's a lot to do. I'm going to grab my hat again. This time I'm going to grab my two layers. I'm going to drag them in. Again, the hat is so big that I'm going to have to zoom out. So I'm going to hold down Command and minus and kind of zoom out until I can see my picture. There it is. Now I'm going to go to Edit, Transform, and Scale. This will allow me to resize it. I'm going to hold down the Shift button as I drag it down nice and small. I'm going to go in like this. Make that hat nice and small. I'm going to kind of place it over this guy. Now I don't like that hue and saturation applied to the whole picture, so I'm going to bring this down behind the background. First I have to place the hat. So let's set the hat there for a minute. Then I'm just going to select these two layers by holding down my Shift button, and you can rearrange the layers. So if I just wanted my squirrel to be a color, I can move that sepia layer back, or I can drag it so that's behind the background layer. But then my hat disappears, so that's not going to work. So I may need to come up with a different plan. There we go. And I'm going to want this hat on top of my squirrel. So in this case, I'm just going to give it a different, I'm going to try to maybe do a color. Oops, wrong one. I'm going to go to hue and saturation again. Close this out. Let me delete, hide this layer. There we go. And I'm going to throw it away. And I can play around with the hat's coloring by going to, I believe it's image adjustments. And then you can adjust through this way, hue and saturation. This will allow me to adjust my hat. So if you wanted a purple hat or green or blue, you can kind of do it that way. Or I can do the custom sepia hat on just the hat that way. So I'll hit OK. And then I'm going to adjust him. So again, I'll go to Edit, Transform, and Scale. And the hat's supposed to be pretty tiny, so I'm going to make this pretty small. Kind of fit it on him like that. Now, there's some things you could do to make it more realistic. We can go over, let me go ahead and place this, hit Apply. Now, if I go to Edit and do Free Transform, this will also allow me to do just about every transformation. So I'm going to hover my mouse over the edge of the corner and kind of tilt the hat a little bit so it's just off the center. And I'll hit Save and Apply. Now, it kind of hides his cute little ears, so if I wanted to go in there and if I wanted to make it look a little bit more realistic, I'd probably position one of the ears over the hat. Here's how I would do it, and here's what magazines do with their masthead. The title of the magazine is usually at the top, and then they have some kind of a model or an image on the front, and then they have that masthead kind of going over it. Sometimes the image goes over the masthead, so it kind of gives it this overlapping look. That's the effect I'm going for. So I'm going to adjust my opacity so I can see the ears and still see the hat. I'll zoom in so you can see it a little bit better. I'm going to go in with my brush tool and make sure my mask is selected. And I'm going to make sure that the white is selected. Oops, my brush is far too large. There we go. And I'm sorry, I'm going to make sure the black is selected because I want to, let's see, is it? Yeah, it's black. Switch the foreground color to black, and my brush needs to be much, much smaller. Here we go. So now I'm going to just kind of color the ears. Just barely tracing along the edge of the ears. Just this one, the one on the foreground. Okay, and then I'll bring that opacity back. So you can kind of see his ears sticking out a little bit. Just like that. Kind of makes it look like he's really wearing it. Just like that. All right, so I've got my hat and I've been able to add a blending mode, an adjustment layer. I also use the clipping mask to select my hat. So what I'm going to turn the time over to you to do is try to cut out an object, whether it's the hat or the prop or the animal. And when we come back, I want you to share your screen. I want you to show me how you did it. What selection tool did you use? And then I want you to kind of place it on your background image. If you feel comfortable sharing, let me know. I would love to see your work. If not, let me know if there's any questions as you're practicing this, because when we come back, this is the time to ask questions, okay? Are there any questions before we go to break? Is everything clear as mud? Okay, not yet. Perfect. So have fun with this. Practice cutting out one of your objects. When we come back, try to, perfect. Try to see if you can have something to show me. Practice. It doesn't have to be perfect. I just want to see that you can cut out an object using a clipping mask, or sorry, not a clipping mask, a layer mask, And then I want you to be able to put it onto your background image, practice resizing it. Because these images, when you cut them out, are so big and your Photoshop artboard is so small that you really want to be able to get used to resizing correctly, holding down the shift to constrain those proportions. So that's what we're going to be practicing. All right, enjoy the break. We'll be back in 10 minutes. All right, so how's everyone doing? We're back from our break. Does anyone want to share what they've been working on? Any takers? First of all, is everyone back? You do? Okay, perfect. All right, so let me close out of here. And Marcus, I'll unmute your mic so that if you wanted to talk, just tell me what selection tool you used once you get the screen shared.
Okay, I'm still working on like masking out my suitcase.
Yeah, trying to select it.
I'm on the quick select, but I think I'm almost done. This yellow edge.
So you're using the quick select. Now, is the suitcase, are you able to use maybe your magnetic lasso tool to kind of grab the edge a little cleaner? Maybe that might help. That might help grab the edges. Magnetic lasso tool does work well if you have an object on a white background because it can easily detect the edges, but it's up to you. Whatever you're more comfortable using, either tool will work fine.
Let me just hurry and get this real quick.
Yeah, no problem. So as we can see, Marcus is using the quick selection tool. He's just trying to clean up the edges a little bit before he makes his mask. But it's looking good. And don't forget, Marcus, you can also fix it in the mask. So once you've made it, you can go in and clean up the edges that way too.
Okay, so from here,
You'll go at the top to select and mask. Right there, perfect. And then it'll bring up your properties box, and this is where you can kind of adjust the edges. It'll give you an idea of what you want it to look like. There you go.
yeah, doesn't look good, but
you can grab your brush. It's the third one down from the top left. Do you see that? That brush will allow you to kind of go in and paint a little bit more. You can kind of clean up the edges. You can also use your refinements on your properties to smooth out those edges if you need. So you can undo that, or you can kind of adjust it that way. And you can even adjust the contrast and the feather, kind of make it whatever would look best. And if you need to just completely go back and select it, you can do that as well.
So,
but I think this is exactly right. This is exactly what you would have done. Select it, go to select and mask just like Marcus did. And I thought you did a pretty good job on the suitcase. This one's a little tricky, so.
Okay, so I selected mask now?
Yep, you can select and mask it. And then if you like the changes, if you're okay with it, you can hit okay. And then, oh, we forgot to, can you unlock your background layer? All right, now try to do select and mask, see if it will work. Hit okay. Should create the new layer for you. Go ahead and select and mask one more time. Okay, hold on. Let me check my settings real quick. It should do it without any trouble. Let's see. Let's get this guy selected. All right, if I go to select and mask, and then it should create it for you. Let's see, what are we doing? Go ahead and click on Show Original up top of the view mode. See if that does anything. That's just going to display it though. And then hit OK. So it should create that layer mask. Are you able to pull it up again? Here, go ahead and Is this your original layer? Did you do anything to it?
No, that's just my original, I think.
Okay. Click on the bottom by the FX. Click on that. Add new layer mask. There we go. Okay. So now it's selected. You can double click on that layer mask to bring up your properties again.
Okay.
So those adjustments can still be made on that. You can kind of smooth it out. Giving it a color on the background will help you see the edges a little bit easier. I like using the overlay just because it shows you where the real edges are. You can go ahead and you can clean that up on the other layer as well.
Okay. I'll go back and work on it.
Yeah, that's fine. But I think that's exactly what you did. The steps are correct. And I guess if you don't see it after clicking selected mask, you can just add the layer mask there at the bottom. But it
So
looks
now-
good.
Oh, shoot.
Just hit Command D or Control D if you're on PC. Perfect.
Move and then drag that up in there.
Yep, you can bring it in. And then you'll just need to resize it.
And image.
Edit. Edit, and then you can go to transform and scale, or you can do free transform. It's up to you.
Which, I mean, is there a difference?
Yeah, so free transform will let you do everything under the transform tool. So if you go to transform, you see all the different things it can do: scale, rotate, skew, distort, perspective. If you go to free transform, it will let you do every single one of those. If you want more control, just go to transform and scale. Scale will allow you to adjust up and down, and that's all it will let you do. So if you wanted more freedom with what you could do with the object, you could go to free transform, but this is probably safe. So hold down shift as you scale it down, and then you can just get it to fit inside your. Don't forget to hold down shift as you do that.
I did.
Perfect. And then
where did it go?
zoom out again. There you go. Okay, now just go to edit, or transform and scale. There you go. And you hold down shift and bring it in. You can just click and drag as it is. You don't have to grab your move tool. There you go. Perfect. So Marcus has just demonstrated exactly what to do for the first couple steps on this assignment. Now he's going to go in and I'll let him fine tune that, but I'm going to go ahead and close out. Thank you for sharing, Marcus. That was well done.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your participation. Okay, anybody else want to take a stab at it? If not, we'll continue. Okay, so while you ladies are finishing cutting out your lemurs, I'm gonna kind of undo what I just did here. See if it will let me. Don't accept. Okay, and we're back. All right. So we talked about enabling or disabling the mask a little bit. Let me close out your mic, Marcus. There we go. I just keep hearing myself talking. It sounds weird. Okay, so we talked about double clicking on the mask to open up the properties. So by double clicking on the mask itself, you can open up the properties window. You can invert it if you wanted to see it inverted. You can also adjust other things, the density, the feather. Lots of other adjustments can be made here. If you wanted to add an adjustments layer to this particular object, like if I were to use the curve, I could adjust it and it would give me, some different examples, but I'm going to undo that because I don't need that. And we also talked a little bit about the keyboard shortcut, how to refine a mask, and then we turned on the smart radius. We increased and adjusted the edge on the sliders to, if you're working with a fuzzy creature, this will help smooth the edges a little bit and kind of make the fur look a little bit more natural instead of like it's completely cut off. So play around with the smooth and the feather, keeping it kind of in the middle, and then the contrast low. This will kind of help you define the edge a bit more. or you can use the refine radius tool. That also is helpful. Now, if you click it, you can find those areas that will that you'll need to refine. But in order to apply the refinements to the mask, you can fine tune this mask just by kind of playing around with it, maybe achieving some different results, kind of playing around, see what you need to do. And then just hit OK or accept the changes. And that is kind of masking 101. Now it's a little hard to get used to. It's a little different. So we'll do one more. Let me pull up my prop and I'll bring it into Photoshop and we'll talk a little bit more about this. Now the prop that I've chosen is the wand, and now we've been using the quick selection tool, but as you can see with the quick selection tool, like on Marcus's example, as he's trying to cut out the suitcase, because it for some reason the curved edge and the white background, it wasn't completely grabbing it in a clean way. So maybe for something with a little bit more curve to it, you might want to use the magnetic lasso tool. I could use the magnetic lasso tool for this particular object, but I don't know if it's going to give me as straight of an edge. See, as you can see, it's kind of veering off out into the white. That's definitely not what I want. So the tool for this job, if you're going to use the wand, the prop that the tool I would use for this prop is the polygon lasso tool, because as you can see, it is all straight edged through and through. So this will be a quick grab. So I'm just going to do polygon lasso tool. I'm going to grab that wand, kind of get it in there as much as possible. Grab the star. This is probably the easiest way to trace the star and mask it. Try to get as close as you can. Just like that. Okay, now that it is selected, like we saw, I can go to my select and mask up here at the top. First, I have to unlock my background. Let's see. Let me undo that. Don't accept. And I'm going to unlock my background. Always unlock your background. Okay. There. Now I'm going to go to select and mask. And if I like it, if all is well, I'll hit OK. I'll hit accept. And then it's going to make me want to save. But I'll double click my mask if I need to adjust properties on this at all, like the density or the feathering. But I want to keep my feathering low because I want a hard edge on that wand. All right, now that is all done. So now I can just click and drag it right into my assignment right here. And as you can see, it is much larger than my image. So just like Marcus, I'm going to zoom as far out as possible. And I'm going to go to transform. You can scale it or free transform it. I'm doing free transform simply because I'm going to need to rotate it later. And I'm just saving a step. There's no right and wrong to how you resize it. Now I'm going to set this wand aside here. I'm going to actually hide the layer, and I'm going to go into my squirrel layer mask. Now here's the beauty of having, let me place that real quick. Here's the beauty of using layer masks, because in this case I cut him out too much. I don't want the peanut in his hands. I want him holding the wand. So what I'm going to do is need to get rid of that peanut. So I'm going to click on his mask. So as you can see, the squirrel layer mask is selected. And now I need to kind of erase that peanut out of his hand. So I'm going to grab the brush tool and I'm going to paint black. Make sure black is selected in the foreground. Black is going to kind of erase that. So I'm going to go like this. And I'm going to zoom in so I can get as accurate as possible. And it's super blurry, so it's going to be a little hard to be accurate, but I'm going to kind of trace that peanut, preserving his fingers as much as possible. Take that peanut out of his hands, because the idea here is I'm going to want to put the wand in his hand. Oops. I'll hide that. Make sure I'm on my layer mask. There we go. I was coloring on the wrong layer. Okay, so here we go. All right, and here is the wand. Now I'll bring it back into its visible layer. I will shrink it down. Oops, wrong one. Make sure the wand is selected before you try to resize it. It's quite large, so there we go. All right, so I'm going to bring this down quite a bit, and I'm going to position it in his hands. We hope you feel better. Amanda, thanks for coming. The recording will be up by Wednesday morning, so you can check that out. Okay, now this slightly got skewed when I was resizing it. Okay. So I'm just going to use my up and down arrow keys. And I'm going to rotate this so it kind of looks like he's holding it. I'm going to zoom in, and again, I'm going to use that opacity trick. So I've got the wand. I'm going to move it down so you can see it. But I want his fingers to be overlapping that wand so it looks more natural. So I'm going to click on this layer mask. I'll hit apply, and then I'm going to select the layer mask so that I can adjust the opacity on it. I'm going to bring the opacity down just enough so I can see his hands behind that wand. I'm going to grab that paintbrush too and make sure the layer mask is selected. With black in the foreground, I'm going to kind of erase around his paw. I keep saying hands, but he has paws. And then I'm going to just kind of trace over his paws so that they're showing over the wand. I'll bring that opacity back up. So now it looks like he is holding that wand. I'll zoom out so you can see, just like that. So it's like he's holding it. Now I don't need that wand to be super big. So what I'm going to do is click on that layer mask yet again, and I'm going to erase the wand. So I'm going to probably start here, and I'm painting with black with the brush. So using the brush tool, I'm painting over that layer mask. And this is going to allow me to kind of cut that edge off. So I'm kind of making it shorter because he's a shorter little creature. Okay, just like that. Any questions about this? And I got to clean up the edges above him because the layer mask is still visible. There we go. So kind of simple. It's going to take some practice to getting used to. You're working with a lot of different layers, so it can get a little confusing. Just remember that any adjustments that you need to make need to be made on the layer mask itself. So whether or not I want to color this hat, or if I want to remove it or poke the ear out of it, I need to make sure that the edit is done on the layer mask and not on the original, okay? All right. So are there any questions at this point? Now, it's important to know we've been submitting JPEGs and everything. The file submission requirements for this assignment is to save a PSD file. So the way that you're going to do that is you're going to go up to File, Save, or Save As, and make sure that the format says Photoshop. Make sure it's saved correctly, and then you'll hit Save that way. All right, now I have a short little video I wanted to share with you. It's about using layer masks. After the video, we're gonna kind of do something fun. We're gonna take a break from the assignments, and I'm gonna show you how to use a clipping mask on your text to kind of do that text punch out effect. It's kind of cool. It looks, it's pretty neat. So, and it's super simple to do. So I'm going to share the video and then we will jump right into using the clipping mask on our text. So let me pull this video up real quick. Give me just a minute. Okay, so it's how to layer mask in 2 minutes. So it's just a 2-minute Photoshop tutorial. We pull it up. Like this. Can everyone see it okay? I might need to refresh my screen. Hold on. See if it'll work. There we go.
Welcome to this 2-minute Photoshop tutorial brought to you by tutvid.com. And today we're going to talk about masking. What is it and how can you learn to mask in a snap? We're going to paint our red car green. So you see I've got the green car here. So let's just jump in and get started. I'm going to look over here to my layers panel. At the bottom of the layers panel, I have a layer mask icon. Hit that to add a layer mask. Basically, here's how a mask works. If your mask is white, whatever's white you can see. I'm going to fill this with black. You see that? When that's filled with black, everything is hidden. So black means you can't see it. White means you can see it. All right, I actually want to fill this with black though. So I'm going to hit Command-I or Control-I. That's going to fill it with black. It's going to just invert the white to black. I'm going to zoom in on the car and I'm going to use my brush tool. So I'm going to hit the letter B, bring up my brush, and I'm going to make the brush a little bit smaller. Anytime you need to adjust the size or hardness of the brush, simply right click. I'm going to make this a relatively hard brush, maybe about 75%. And I'm just going to paint wherever I want the green color to go. So give me a second and I'll have all of this color painted right in. And I will be right back to finish this tutorial. Okay, and just like that, we have painted in over the entire body of the car. If I Alt or Option click on the mask, you can see I have this kind of messy looking mask here, which I can clean up a little bit more if I need to, but it looks pretty good out here. One of the really cool things about masking, one of the advantages it has over erasing is, let's say, obviously, we don't want the windows to have this green tint, so I can just go ahead, grab my brush tool again, make sure my foreground color is set to black. I can zoom in here and just paint black over this whole entire area here and get rid of all of the green that normally would be filling that area. And just like that, there we go. We've gone ahead and got rid of that green there. All right, I'm just going to touch up the top of the door there, and that's great. And in the same way, if you need to add more green, you paint white somewhere, right? If I want to make over here very green, I can just paint in white over there. Oops, I don't want that. I can just paint black over that to hide all of that green again. So just like that, we have gone ahead and used masking to just change the color of this car very realistically. And then here's a finished result where I just went ahead and added some coloring to correct headlights and wheels and the windows. And we went from a red car to a green car very quickly using a layer mask. So that's it for this one, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. Go check out www.tutvid.com.
So we'll go ahead and stop that one. But does that give you a better understanding of what layer masks are used for and some other ways you can incorporate it other than with? I especially like I like that tutorial because it's done in 2 minutes. It's kind of like a quick and dirty explanation of, you know, how to use it and what you would use it for. So, okay, so we are back into Photoshop and we are going to do a cool technique. And let me see if I got it. Okay, so we're going to do something that it's kind of 5 easy steps to using what we call a clipping mask. Now, have you ever kind of wondered how people get artwork to fit the shape of an object or maybe a word? So maybe you see a phrase or a word and you see like a picture in that word. In today's tutorial, we're going to be going over how to use some text as a clipping mask to have an image appear through the letters using Adobe Photoshop. And the difference between a layer mask and a clipping mask is created in Photoshop when you use the content of one layer to mask the layers above it. So the clipping mask is only going to work if your layers are in the right order. in a nutshell, you're basically clipping around the artwork to fit the shape of the object. So a clipping mask is just that. It will trim whatever the shape of the object is. So if I had a circle, it would do the same thing. It would clip around the circle. So let's kind of practice this a little bit. So I've got my picture here. I've just pulled in just a random picture. And the clipping mask is kind of cool in the sense that no matter what you are clipping, let me just draw a shape here. So for instance, this is a black circle. You can clip a shape, you can clip text. Clipping mask means it will just trim around the object or the shape of the object that you are using. Yeah, exactly. So it makes it easier to remember it that way. Absolutely. So in this case, I'm using a circle. And I'm going to do this real quick and then we'll go over the steps. I'm going to move my picture over the circle. And then I'm going to right click and click create clipping mask. So as I do that, my image is now being cropped to whatever the object is. So this was a demo on how to do the circle. I am going to demo how to do it with text because it's the same concept. So I'm going to hide my circle. So if you would like, you can pull, if you have a picture open already, I'd like you to just grab the type tool. And we're going to use the type tool and just type a word. In this case, it could just be vegetables. Maybe it would help if I spelled it right. There we go. And it will only work if you're using very large, fat text. It needs to be very thick and heavy. So I'm going to kind of enlarge the type here. I'm also going to go to, I need to change the font to a very heavy, bold font. So the way that I do that, I'm going to grab my type tool. And over here under the properties, it will allow me to adjust my font. So I'm going to go to bold because I really want that to be thick. And then I can go to edit and do a free transform where I'll scale it up pretty big. And so I've got my font here and it's still not as thick as I want. So I'm going to kind of cut this word short. So we'll do veggies instead. And then this will allow me to enlarge my word even more. Hold down Shift, of course, to constrain those proportions. And then I'm going to place, position my text around the area that I want to get. So maybe I want the veggies to be poking through, kind of clipped in my text a little bit instead of that green background. So I want to see the carrots and the beets and the other veggies we've got going on in here. So I'm going to position it right where I want it. I'll hit save and apply those changes. And then here's the trick to the clipping mask. I'm going to bring the background to the top above the object layer. And then I will right click on that picture and select clipping mask. And now you can see all those veggies poking through. Now with that picture selected, I can grab the move tool and I can move the background layer if I wanted to. Or I can click on this text here and I can move the wording around the picture. Do you see that? So if I didn't want the vegetables poking through or if I wanted more of them, I can just move that text around those veggies. So yes, this is super fun. This is a really easy technique to use. It's only in 5 simple steps. So we'll go over it a little slower. I just wanted to kind of introduce the concept to you. So here's the 5 easy steps to using a clipping mask within Adobe Photoshop. So your step 1 is in Photoshop, under File, you're going to open the photo that you want to use to appear through the letters. In this case, I'll go ahead and undo this clipping mask, step back. So in this case, I'm using my picture here. It can be any picture. So I encourage you to open up a picture if you've got one already open. It can be your animal picture. It can be your background picture, whatever you've got open right now. And I want you to grab the type tool and I want you to type a word. In this case, I typed more plants. So I'll position this picture kind of where I want it to be. All right. And then step 2, is once you have your picture pulled into Photoshop, you're going to duplicate the photo layer. Then you're going to remove the locked background. So in this case, I've got multiple layers going on in here. I've removed the locked background. You can duplicate the layer. So it's a layer copy. In this case, I'll put layer copy so that we know. All right, and then I'm going to just hide the original layer because, again, we always want to make sure that things are done on another layer. Once you removed that background image or you've hidden it from the Windows layer, you can even delete it if you wanted to, but we're just going to keep it there. But using the type tool, you can add the text you want. That's step 3, so choosing the word. And then place the background photo on the foreground. So just arranging it, making sure that your background image, that your image is on top of your object. Right click on that image and select clipping mask. So whatever is underneath it, whatever object's underneath it, it will now clip it. So for instance, I'm going to grab this more plants wording. I'm going to drag it around to kind of find the position that I want. So if I want more beets in the picture, if I want more of the sun, or if I want more of those flowers, I'll kind of position it in such a way where it looks good just like that. So then step 5 is just clicking on the photo in the Windows layer and the one that's highlighted, and then you'll select a layer, create clipping mask. And now you'll see the photo fit only the shape of the text. So as you can see, it's only fitting the object or the object shape. So like we did with the circle, same concept. So voila, this is kind of how you do a very simple clipping mask. So just remember to save your new image as a PNG file, and you can pull it or place it in any colored background if you wanted to. So you go to File and go to Save As. You could save this as a PNG file. This is my text clipping mask. And I'll probably just save it to my desktop here. Perfect. And then I'll hit OK. And that will allow me to bring it into any assignment. You don't need it in this assignment, but if I were to drag it into something, this is where you would bring it into. So your newly created clipping mask with text placed on the on the background is a really cool effect. I hope you enjoy this one. I want you to practice it and see if you can get it. Just think of all the stuff that you can create for a blog or blog posts or advertisements, and just remember that there's it only takes 5 steps to do it. So yeah, step 4. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to post these steps under the class announcement so you have the steps. But step 4, nope, that's fine. Step 4 was placing the background photo in the foreground layer, just making sure it's on top of your object or your text. You want to make sure that it's on top. And now the photo layer is on top of the text. That's all you want to do. Step 5 is highlighting the photo. Let me go back. Where did I put it? There we go. Yeah, step 5 is just highlighting the photo, then layer, create clipping mask, and now you'll see the photo fit only the shape of the text. So whether it's a circle or whether it's the text. So in this case, we'll do this and hide this. So there's a lot that you can do. I'll hide this. I can even bring this one above it. I can do clipping mask. So I've got my circle there. Create clipping mask, and now it will select to my circle. Kind of neat, huh? So it's a cool little tip and trick. I'll post the steps in the announcement section of the course homepage, so you have steps 1 through 5. So check that out. This lecture will be recorded and posted tomorrow morning. Are there any questions before we leave? You guys have been great. I appreciate your participation, your diligence in taking notes. That's been great. And I would love to see it, Amanda. Let me stop the share. All right, go ahead and click share screen. Yay, you did it. Excellent. So very, very good. So as you can see, she just simply clipped it and it fit perfectly in those letters. Now, if you wanted to move the text around to kind of place it somewhere else on the picture, where would you go? Yeah, exactly. You would be able to move the text or the object around. Very, very good. Excellent job. So that's actually a really cool background. I like the stars kind of poking through. Very, very nice. Anybody else want to share? Oh, that makes me happy. I'm glad you guys got it. Okay, Marcus, go ahead. Yeah, excellent. And see, Marcus made a layer copy, so that's important to get into the habit, hiding his original layer and then placing the wording on top. Very good. Excellent job. So with that layer copy, he was able to do a cool clipping mask. So I love that. I love the truck pulling, poking, like appearing through the words truck. That's really cool. That's a cool picture too. See, guys, there's a lot you can do in Photoshop. That's really neat. Good job. You guys picked that one up fast. Usually when I go fast with a tip, it takes most students a while to pick it up, but I'm very proud of you guys. Excellent job. This is cool. Yes, enjoy it. There's so much you can do in Photoshop, and just like we said earlier, we could spend weeks on just one tool, one technique, but hopefully you have fun with the clipping masks. Don't get them confused with layer masks, but that was just a fun little tip and trick I wanted to show you. Have fun with the assignment. If you have questions, come tomorrow and we'll work together on it in the multi-session. I am so glad you guys are having fun. This is fun to do. So enjoy the assignment and let me know if you have any hiccups along the way, okay? Thanks, guys. You guys are awesome. Thanks for coming. We'll see ya.